Here till 6. Welcome, everybody. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and get started since it's 3:45, and it's the last session of the day, so I'm sure everyone's ready for a cocktail like me. Okay, so welcome to the Challenges of Drupal and SEO. I'm Lindsey LaMair. I am the SEO department manager at Webspec Design. We're based out of Des Moines, but I'll give you a little bit of background in a little bit. So primarily what we're going to be talking about today, I guess I'm just going to take a short survey, so raise your hand if you've ever heard of SEO before. Keep your hand up if you know how to properly optimize a page title. Okay, keep it up if you have optimized an entire website before. Okay, you don't count. Yeah, so we're primarily going to be talking about some SEO basics today. If at any point you're really confused, please stop me, and I will be happy to answer your questions. And for the most part, I don't know if anybody went to Alex's integrated marketing session earlier, but she was talking about some other like external marketing tactics, and I'm just talking about organic SEO. So this will be, you know, any component that is made up of just SEO optimization. I'm not talking about paid search or anything like that today. And the reason why I want to focus on just organic SEO is because it's one of those things that takes a lot of effort and time to put into it. However, when you stop paying for it, just like, you know, if you stop paying for paid search or if you don't do any more you know, display advertising or things like that, it's not going to necessarily go away right away. Obviously, you want to be maintaining it you know, frequently and making sure you're keeping your content fresh and all those different strategies we're going to talk about. But just because you stop paying for it or you take a bit of a break once you've reached your SEO goals doesn't mean it's going to go away overnight. So that's kind of cool. You have to put a lot of effort into it, but it is something that's a little bit more sustainable. Just to preface this a little bit, so we do, and I'll explain a little bit more about how our SEO program works. But this is essentially a case study of our Drupal SEO experience. These are challenges that we've encountered, and I can't actually tell you who this is a case study of, but this is kind of a reflection of a lot of our experience with Drupal, and it changes a little bit because we've taken over these websites. We did not initially optimize them. So some of these challenges might be a little bit different if you're you know, starting from the ground up with SEO in mind. So my guess is that not all of you will be optimizing a website you know, on an ongoing basis, but that doesn't mean you can't start with a well-optimized site. So a little bit of background. Hello, like I said, I'm Lindsey. I've been with Webspec for 2 years now, and when I started, I really didn't know, I knew next to nothing about organic search. So this has been a very fast learning experience. My background's in technical communication, so that was definitely something I had not learned in school or in any previous work experience, and I had to pick it up very quickly. But I've watched our department grow from 2 people, myself and Andrea actually, grow from 2 people to 6 now, and we monitor, we manage anywhere between 400 and 600 hours of ongoing search work a month, as well as between 200 and 400 content hours. So we've got a lot of work to do. And then one of the more exciting things that I've been involved in 2014, we won a US Search Award for our best low budget campaign. So low budget and local has been sort of my background in SEO, but a little bit about Webspec. We are a full service web design and development firm. We also have a web marketing department, so we kind of are a twofold business. We work with clients like Perkins, Hy-Vee, Dart Bus Lines in Des Moines, Samsung, State of Iowa, Diamond Vogel, the Secretary of State's not one that's on there. And then we also work with a lot of really small businesses, so very service-based industries. 80% of our work is in WordPress, primarily because they are small businesses, but all of our large clients and enterprise we do in Drupal, and we also have a lot of hybrid Magento solutions for e-commerce, so we've got a pretty wide variety of stuff that we work on. The unique part about us is that we're a completely in-house team, so we don't outsource any of our work. So chances are if you're doing a project with us, there is an expert that you can talk to in the office, which is kind of cool. And currently we have about 30 ongoing SEO marketing clients, so we deal with them on a month-to-month basis for, you know, a predetermined amount of time. We have a mixture of local, state, regional, multi-state, national clients. And like I said, we won a US Search Award for a best low budget campaign. We are also shortlisted for a best local campaign. So those are kind of our 2 hot button areas. But we do have a lot of much larger clients who work with us on a longer term basis. So. Okay, so here's the question of the day. and this is straight from the developers that ask me this quite frequently, do you ever feel like SEO is sort of voodoo black magic that's invented by Google to make your job harder, you know, on any given day? Because I certainly do, especially like yesterday when Google released a portion of a very large update, and then it had to do with Search Console warnings, and all these clients are emailing me, and I don't know about it yet because Google doesn't tell anybody before they tell anyone else. So it was just, it's always keeping me on my toes, and I feel like nobody really knows what's happening. But so the goal of today is to kind of go over just basic objectives to make sure that your website will always, you know, at least withstand some of these larger updates. And every campaign that you're going to be working on is unique. So it's not necessarily about the CMS that you're going to encounter challenges with. It's more about the actual campaign. So we'll talk a little bit about those unique goals here in a second. So, yeah, pardon my Ryan Gosling meme on there. But so there's been some major Google updates. There's been hundreds and hundreds in the last, you know, since Google was formed. But these are some of the most notable ones from the last few years. The freshness update was happened back in November of 2011. It affected the core Google search algorithm. It began rewarding sites with frequently updated content. So we've talked a lot about freshness of content today in quite a few of the sessions. And that this is kind of when blogging really became in vogue. I guess blogs always existed prior to this, but this is where that update really, you know, pushed on that blogging as a marketing tool. And I don't know if any of you have heard of Hummingbird, but that was a really major update that happened in August of 2013, right when I started at Webspec. It was a very major update, and there was no warning. The goal of it was to provide faster and more precise results, similar to the namesake of that update. And it also started the rise of conversational search. So if you ever like speak to your phone and say, okay, Google now, or hey Siri, can you find this for me? That's kind of where that update really started pulling in that very accurate conversational search. And this one I actually released in August of 2013 and didn't talk about it until September. So it was a really big update. People dropped in rankings. It affected the core search algorithm and just didn't tell anyone about it. So just the fun part of the job. Another major update a year later was authorship removed. Alex talked a little bit about Google Plus in her presentation, and so this essentially, Google Plus used to allow you to put markup on your website to say, I publish this content, so it would give you, a link back to your Google Plus page and allow you to basically promote yourself or your business. They removed this markup from search results, so essentially, in my opinion, removed kind of some of the significance of Google Plus in general when that happened. And then another major update that month was the HTTPS and SSL update. So this gave priority to more secure sites. Google said a user-friendly site is a secure site. So, and whether or not this has actually made a huge amount of difference in some of our sites has yet to be determined, but we found that it maybe gives you a slight edge. There's definitely other components that are more important. And then most of you probably should have heard about this if you manage a website. I call this mobile get-in. It happened in April of 2015. This was an update that Google, essentially when we were doing some forecasting in January of this year for year-end reviews, we kept hearing mobile is going to be a huge thing. 65% of search is going to be done on mobile by the end of 2015. It was just a huge deal, and we were like, well, what does this really mean for us? We knew something big was coming, but we weren't really sure what it was. So they started giving advance warning probably in January or February, saying that on April 21st, any non-mobile friendly site is going to be penalized in mobile rankings. So just to give you a brief background, there's a difference between mobile search results and desktop search results, depending on your location and your preferences that are on your phone, search history, that kind of stuff. So, and they started putting a mobile friendly tag next to websites on mobile search, and this wasn't like an overnight switch. It was a little bit more gradual than that, but they did have a lot of advance warning. And essentially, once April 21st hit, if you didn't have like a responsive website, you were going to be hit pretty hard. So this has been something that they just rolled out another update with yesterday or the day before. So it's kind of an ongoing process. So just a brief, basic overview of SEO 101. What are we looking for? I think this meme kind of describes it pretty well. We work with a lot of clients. We've got 800 ongoing active clients, depending on what we did for them in the last 15 years. But a lot of our clients, they know 97% of people on the internet are using search to find stuff, but they don't want to do SEO because they don't understand it. So what are some of the things that we are looking for? Just to boil it down very basically, at Webspec we take a very content-heavy approach. So we basically we focus on the on-page SEO portion of things, and that has proven to help you fare fairly well through any of these major updates. Just to make sure that content is fresh, well optimized, has good keyword density, but not necessarily too dense. The metadata is well optimized. That includes page titles, meta descriptions. The link structure is clear and easy to navigate. In Drupal sites, that's really difficult because you're working with thousands and thousands of pages of content sometimes. So the link structure can be a little bit more difficult, and the URL structure is something you have to consider too. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But more complicated URLs don't get you as good of search results. And then off-page SEO. Who here knows what a backlink is? Okay, so a backlink is another website linking back to your site, and that usually will lead to some amount of authority increase for your website, depending on if the backlink is of high quality or not. Other things to look at are citations and directory listings. So let's say you're running a restaurant website and you have reviews on Yelp or Google Plus or Facebook, and you're listed on that website and you can search for yourself. That's a directory listing. Citation is just anywhere your business name and information is listed, and all of those should be consistent and optimized. And then social media is another portion of that. So like I said, those are just two very basic categories, but pretty much the main ones that are pretty consistent in terms of what you have to do for optimization. And then here's some SEO goals that a lot of clients, and like I said, they're going to be fairly unique. Yeah?
When you mentioned social media and those directory listings, does it help you to do the reverse, link to those sites to promote more content going to your?
Yeah, so we call that content sharing. So let's say you don't have a ton of backlinks right away, but you are getting a really solid blog strategy. You've got a solid social presence. In that case, you want to start getting some of that content out there and have that shared amongst industry users or any of your followers on those social media platforms, and that helps you build up that link profile and start to gain more of that authority. So once you kind of start to get that under control, then you can go out and look for more high quality backlinks. There's a ton of software programs that you can use to find to see what your backlink structure is currently like. We use a program called Majestic SEO for backlink analysis, and that doesn't necessarily create the backlink for you, but it helps you find kind of find where you're at with that link profile. So. But yes, sharing on social is a good strategy. So like I started to mention, some SEO goals are going to be unique to every single campaign. So we have to think about things like what CMS are they built in, where their target locations are, who their user audience is, what their target keywords are, how competitive that market is, that kind of stuff. But primarily, they're going to be looking at getting increased organic traffic. So any user that's finding them on organic search results, so on Bing, Yahoo, and Google. They're also going to be looking at increasing revenue. So if they're an e-commerce based website, that's pretty easy to track conversions. But if it's a service-based industry, you're going to have to get creative on how you're tracking conversions if they're not purchasing something directly off the site. So you also might be looking at improved user interaction, so decreasing bounce rate, increasing the amount of time spent on a page, trying to increase user engagement on a particular section of the website, that kind of stuff. And these could change from month to month or quarter to quarter depending on whatever site you're using. You're also looking at improved visibility on search engine results pages. So your goal usually is to get either on the first page, depending on how competitive the market is or how poor their SEO is up front, or you're going to be looking at infiltrating the top 3. So, and does anyone know how many search results are on the first page of Google? Just off the top of your head. It's 10. So there's paid ads, there's Google Map results, and then there's also organic results. So there's a few different sections you're dealing with. You're also looking at keyword rankings, and we use a program called AWR Cloud to track all of our clients' keyword rankings. There's so many different ones out there. Some of them are free. Some of them have more expensive paid versions, and they all do different things. So they could integrate with your analytics. They could just track search results. And you can track, depending on the program you're using, you can track down to the individual zip code of a search engine. So you'd be looking at Google as Cedar Falls, for example, or Google as the state of Iowa. And the main goal here is just to find a balance between usability and user experience and SEO. So you don't want it to be over SEO'd. If anyone's ever seen sites like that, it's really awkward. You know, they're trying way too hard, and then just finding that friendly balance between, you know, this is definitely giving the users what they need, but also going to rank well in search results.
So what's a clue that it's overly?
So I guess I could have found an example. So prior to the Hummingbird update a couple of years ago, a lot of times people would use like keyword stuffing. So if you've ever seen a website that has like in the footer a ton of different locations like smushed very tiny into the footer, that would be considered keyword stuffing. Or if they've just got a ton of like locations in their content, you know, they've got heading structure that's like very obviously like this is what we do. It's not natural, I guess. It just seems like keywords and locations are kind of shoved in there. That's usually it's not natural and definitely not addressing what the user is looking for. It's more focused on what the search engine's looking for. Does that make sense?
I wish I had an example.
So an example of that would be Webspec Design in Des Moines, Iowa works with clients in Des Moines, Iowa to help their search rankings increase in Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah. So, and you know, that prior to that update, you know, having Des Moines in there a lot of different times combined with those other keywords would help you rank. So, does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. All right, so now I'm going to get into some of the challenges that we've encountered in using Drupal to do SEO on some of our clients. So this is, you know, obviously more advanced SEO. These are very large websites. So some of these challenges, like you might have found a solution to, it could be different for you. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Sorry. Okay, so the first challenge would be Drupal is modular. So as all of you know, you can download a bunch of different modules to essentially take care of different portions of your website or achieve different goals. So this is awesome because WordPress only has essentially two different options for SEO, all-in-one SEO and then WordPress SEO. So this is great if you have a bunch of specific needs on your website or you only care about certain portions of your SEO strategy. But how do you choose which modules to use? So running too many modules can slow your site down, which I'm sure all of you have noticed. And then when you're choosing modules, you know, you have to consider your Drupal level of experience, your SEO level of experience, whether or not you have access to a Drupal developer, that kind of stuff. And sometimes they cost money, sometimes they don't. So just think about that before you install a bunch of different ones to do all these different things. Sometimes they include different, you know, different sections. Sometimes they're, you know, very specific for the task at hand. And then the more modules you have, the more you have to update on your site, which can be a pain and very costly. And you also have to go to more places on your admin to edit SEO, which is a challenge with Drupal that I encountered. WordPress is a little bit more condensed. So some modules to try, and I'll talk about a bunch of different modules throughout. But meta tags is a really common one to use. This one basically just gives you complete control over your metadata. So just page titles and meta descriptions and then keywords. So you can optimize all of those. And those are anything that's going to show up in a search result. So the page title would be if you searched for web design Des Moines. The page title would be in blue. That's the link. And then the meta description shows up below it. That's going to improve your click-through rate. And then your URL will show up with it as well. So that's what you're basically optimizing how you show up in search results. Content Optimizer is another really popular one that scans your content to tell you how SEO friendly it is in terms of keyword density and frequency throughout your heading structure in your content. Google Analytics. So that one, you can actually install a module to really easily drop your code in if you create a Google Analytics account, which is nice so you don't have to have developer hard-coded into your files. And then this also, you might be able to integrate it in with a different module into your actual website. I prefer to use the interface. It's really easy to use once you get comfortable with it. And then, you know, I love Google Analytics. It's very useful for figuring out what content on your website is actually useful to users and how they're interacting with it. So that's something I definitely recommend using. And then image field, I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but this allows you to customize your image SEO. So alt text, and constrain like resolution sizes and that kind of stuff to optimize for that. Because images also can show up in search results. So if you type in web design Des Moines into Google and you click on the images tab, you can also rank for an image if you have well optimized photos. And then an honorable mention that it would be SEO checklist. So this doesn't actually provide you with a strategy necessarily, but it does help you organize your tasks. So if you're like trying SEO out on your website for the first time and you're like, I'm not really sure where to start, this one's a really good module to try because it'll let you check off boxes as you've worked through some of those initial optimization tasks. So the second challenge I've encountered is that Drupal tolerates a lot of content, which is really great if you do have a lot of content on your website. But it does lead to some interesting issues, like on-page SEO takes longer, so optimizing all of your content. The last presentation I went to, they talked about mapping out sitemaps for Drupal, and there's just tons and tons of content. So your on-page SEO is definitely more involved. Sitemaps themselves, so essentially every website has a sitemap that creates like a plan for Google to, or any search engine to crawl your website. Basically tells it how to interact with it. And then you have different types of content to worry about. So you might have a blog or news or articles, that kind of thing. So you have to just be mindful of that in your strategy. And then my question about Drupal is, why is it so hard to search for a particular page? If you have thousands and thousands of pages, you should be able to search for an actual page title, which is sometimes really difficult. So some solutions I've found to that, more pages, no problem. You just have to make sure you invest a little more time in your SEO, especially up front. If you have a website that's not well optimized, you're going to be spending some more time on it. Utilize those modules I suggested to your advantage, like XML sitemap. You can get a search engine friendly XML file of all of your URLs in your site, and you can organize them depending on importance, so they know how frequently to crawl pages. That kind of stuff. And then the URL list is a really nice module. It creates a plain text sitemap of all the URLs on your site. So if you are like, I don't want to search through all these URLs, it's really confusing, that module would be a good one to try to organize all the pages that you have to optimize. And then Search 404. Does everyone know what bounce rate is? Okay, so this actually improves your bounce rate by sending users to a list of your internal pages if they encounter a 404 error when they're on your website. So it basically gives them suggestions on how to interact with your website if they do, in fact, encounter a 404, which does decrease your SEO score. Sorry, guys.
Does it actually suggest certain pages within the site for that person to go to?
Yeah, so let's say they search for Drupal development if they were on our site, for example, and there wasn't any pages that corresponded to that. It would provide like some suggestions on related pages. So it actually does improve your user interaction. It gives them another option rather than just having them leave because they couldn't find the page they were looking for. And then another strategy is just to prioritize the content that's going to help your SEO the most. So I would probably just focus on static content pages that you update once a quarter, and then blog posts. Those are updated a lot more frequently. So those you can prioritize in your sitemap file to tell Google to, or whatever search engine you're using, to crawl those more frequently. The third challenge would be URL structure. So something that I've encountered is Vanilla Drupal's default page alias settings. They create two paths to the same page. So you've got a node path, and then you also have a custom page title or page path if you want to create that. So it does maintain the old node URL, and sometimes if your developer sets it up correctly, they can remove those from the sitemap, but sometimes they sneak in, and you know what that means? Duplicate content. So duplicate content is actually a really big problem in SEO. It creates a lot of issues, and I'll go into that into detail a little bit more. Basically, you want to make sure you have unique, original, created content on all of your pages. You don't repeat it, and there are some tools that you can use to see, how much of your content is duplicate, whether within your own site or with sites that are on the internet. So that's kind of nice. And then modules having more content types creates more complicated, longer URLs if you don't have a developer to customize them. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you'll get like a slash content and then the path, or like a slash blog. So if you don't want that on there, you'll have to further customize it to remove that.
So are you saying that if there's two websites out there that have content that's very similar, both of you will go down in rankings?
Yes, and it depends on other SEO factors. So like we did a website transfer of our own website back in February, and our owner was really nervous about it. He was like, we changed some of our content too, and he was like, we might potentially go down in rankings, I just don't know. And actually our backlink structure had a lot to do with why we didn't drop in any rankings. So, you know, if you have really strong areas of your SEO elsewhere, that can kind of save you for at least a little while, but duplicate content became a really big hot button issue for Google probably in the last year or so.
But I think the question was this, if like happymedium.com/about has some content and webspecdesign.com/something else has some very similar content, that's not duplicate content, but because it's on different URLs, right?
No, you can still have duplicate content.
We had it when we rolled out our website, and we would make changes, and then somebody else would go to the site and think they were on the correct page, but it was we called it the ghost pages, and we had to go back in and clean all of that up. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Because people, they didn't know it, and I figured it out, and we had to go back in and just clean everything up. I mean, it took a while, but how did that happen? It's because we didn't know that we create that ghost, you know, because you're in a testing phase and you want it. It was a weird thing how we found it, because I'm like, I make those changes and they're like, Rochelle, they're right there. It's right here. The changes aren't made, and I'm like, yes, they are. So we did a big in-depth digging, and it was enlightening. We learned so much by that, but don't do that because it took us a long time.
And you have to clean that up from search results and everything. Yep. To answer Ethan's question, yes, if you do have two URLs with similar content, it's percentage based on the similarities, but yeah, it will. You will eventually get penalized for it. So.
If you have a test site, would that affect it? If that's pretty much the same content, but one you play around with, that's not really.
Just make sure that's blocked from search engines. You can block the robots.txt file and make sure it's not being indexed, and then you won't have to worry about that.
Staging site versus our live site, which separated them both out. So that was good. That helped cut down that ghost site.
Yep. So you just gotta be really careful with that. We've run into that too, where it's like, oh gosh, like the test site might still be up, so just make sure that's being blocked.
She raised kind of an interesting point as well. Like, if Joe Shop decided to build a website that looks at home, maybe they're just being rats and deciding to take a copy and put it over here and then dress it up and do something different. You then get the cost of both of you guys getting knocked down.
And it may not be diabolical. Maybe you're both promoting things that are similar.
So, I mean, in the case of like government or whatnot, we're going to have very similar stuff to another state or another agency.
Government's a little bit luckier because SEO is still, it's still important, but we worked on the Department of Human Services website for the state of Iowa, and you really don't have to worry about it as much because people still have to go to your website. So as long as you have well-optimized page titles, duplicate content isn't as big of an issue for .gov websites. Did you say something?
Well, the .gov gives you a higher paper authority.
Yeah. So you won't get penalized for the duplicate content so much as like a .com that tries to copy your website content. They'll get penalized for it. But
a lot of times, to go back to your question, if we actually just took on a client that his old site, and we didn't actually do the content for his new site when we did it, is an exact match to another, he's a home inspector, exact match to another company, to another person. And the guy that he bought the site from, you gave him the same site as he gave another person, another home inspector.
And so that home inspector who got his site back in 2005 and that same content that hasn't been changed since then is ranking in the #1 spot for home inspector. And the guy that we just took on is nowhere to be found in the top 3 pages. And so I think part of it too is, and he didn't get his site until 2009 with that content. So because the other guy had his site for so much longer and he was seen as the first one to have that content, he's not being penalized. Our client is, because he's seen Google as copying because his published date is later than the other guy.
Yeah. Really weird situation. So it's always good to audit your content every so often just to make sure you're not like blatantly copying anybody else, because it always depends on like how you do your research and if someone's ripping you off too. So that's why constant refresh is kind of like the hidden reason why that's actually a really good idea. But some of the URL issues that you might encounter in Drupal, here's some ideas on how to fix them. So Pathauto is a module that I found where you can create custom SEO-friendly URLs to clean up some Drupal default paths. But you have to combine it with global redirects to make sure you force redirects to the custom page aliases from the ones, the old paths. So just make sure that you combine those two. And then once you get your URL structure in place, if you are trying to improve any issues that you have, just recreate and resubmit your website or your sitemap for crawl, and you can do that in Google Search Console. So basically that, like, you can do fetch as Google, and it tells Google, hey, we're ready to get a sitemap recrawled. So a little bit more about duplicate content and why this is an issue. So it could potentially be plagiarism depending on who has copied who. That doesn't tend to be as much of an issue with digital content because there's so much on the internet. Everyone ends up ripping off somebody at some point, regardless of if you know it or not. So really the main issue is that search engines don't know which page to use in search query results. So if you have two pages of content on your website, or even one page that has 2 separate URLs, search engines don't know which page to actually put in search results. They get confused, which causes you to drop in rankings, even if you have really well optimized content on that page. They also don't know where to attribute link metrics. So if you have a backlink to that page, if you have anchor text, which is any text that's coming from a link back to your website, any link trust or authority, that kind of gets minimized because it's not sure where to send that to. And then search engines don't know which pages to include or exclude from the index. So that's just where making sure you have like those all cleaned up, so you don't actually trick Google into thinking you have duplicate content is good to have. Mainly the goal is to just simplify things for search engines. So utilize your 301 redirects. If you end up changing a URL, make sure you redirect it from the old one to the new one, so users don't get confused and search engines don't either. Canonicalization is a little bit more advanced, but you can essentially provide like a tag for that URL to say that these 2 pages have the same content, just letting Google know that they do have some duplicate content, which is good for like e-commerce websites if they have a particular section of content that's repeated a lot of times on product pages. And then use meta robots tags like no follower, no index, if you don't want a search engine to actually crawl that page. So even if you want to keep it there on a separate URL, just tell search engines to ignore it. So the 4th challenge that we've seen is modules aren't as frequently updated in Drupal, which is okay for some modules, I will preface this, but other modules you want to make sure that those are updated more frequently just because SEO does change so often. And sometimes they will completely flip your entire strategy on you. So some modules will be okay to have an older release date, but some of them might be a little concerning. So SEO checklist, like the one I mentioned earlier, the last recommended release date was February of 2013. It's been updated since then, but that's the major last version of it. Meta tags, same thing, December 2012 was their last major release. Content Optimizer, the last recommended release, which was a beta version, not even a full version, was December 2012. So we've kind of learned that these modules might be actively maintained, but major releases don't happen as often as WordPress modules do. So that's just something to be aware of as you're using these in your strategy. So SEO obviously moves very quickly and changes so often. Your site and your strategy probably should too. Just to make sure that you're keeping up to date with all of those different strategies and things that are happening. So don't rely on any particular module to do everything for you. Just because SEO checklist says to do it doesn't mean that that should be your end-all be-all strategy. You know, come up with some other things to add to that. And some modules will always serve the same purpose for your SEO, like meta tags is always going to help you optimize your page title and meta description, which for the most part is going to be a fairly constant thing that search engines are going to need. Others are going to need to adapt to those changing standards, like Content Optimizer. You know, keyword density isn't as important as it used to be, and now it's more about usability, so that kind of stuff. And you know, if it hasn't been updated since December 2012, we've had major updates like Hummingbird that completely changed the way Google reads content, and Mobile Get-In, which, you know, is all about mobile-friendly content. So yeah, just keep in mind, since then, there's been a lot of stuff that's changed in search. Challenge 5, you can't edit all the SEO at once. So if WordPress actually, if you look at the pages section of a WordPress site, you can see all the different page titles and meta descriptions for each individual page. And you can edit those right there if you so choose. Yoast actually provides a comprehensive list of metadata, so you can edit that all at the same time as well. The content module in Drupal, which is how you install the meta tag module, it makes it really difficult to do that. You have to go into every single individual page and edit it there. So that just takes a lot longer. It's why it's better to start from the ground up with an SEO strategy than go back and fix it. And then bonus challenge is actually no character counter. Does anyone know how many characters a well-optimized page title should be? 55 to 60. 60 is the max that it actually tells you, that actually will cut off, otherwise it starts to truncate. So 55 is usually a pretty good spot to sit in. Does anyone know about a meta description? It's 155 to 160. So keeping it short and sweet, but with your, you know, telling your business name, services, location, that kind of stuff in page titles is a good strategy. This is actually a photo of a couple of my SEO strategists mapping out a Drupal site. This is not the way we recommend doing it. They kind of got started and were like, I wish we had not done this, but they were using our Kanban board to like map out every single page of this Drupal site and try to strategize that way. And this was the first like major one we had had to go back in and like audit essentially. This was definitely a 3-day process, did not get us a whole lot of progress. So we decided to take things into our own hands and created our own bulk editor. So we use Google Spreadsheets, and I tried to include a screenshot, but Prezi was being weird earlier. So we use Google Spreadsheets and basically just made our own comprehensive list of all the URLs we wanted to make sure were optimized. And then we had the current page title, meta description, and keywords if they had any. And then we had the new version of all of those. Then we had notes like, you know, is this published on the site? Is this not? Has this been updated? Are any of these duplicate content? That kind of stuff. So basically we just created a sitemap with all the different pages, URLs, so we could actually link to the website if need be. And then we used a free character counter on the internet. And once you start to do this more and more, you'll get more comfortable with links. So I can actually do a page title without looking at how many characters it is and get pretty close to 60. But at first it's kind of nice to see where you're at. And then you can edit, you know, punctuation and stuff like that from there to make sure you fit within the limits. And then we basically just went in and manually copy and pasted it into the Drupal SEO module. Now there might be an easier way, but this way was the best for us to ensure that everything was researched, custom, and got implemented correctly. So voila, now you have edited SEO. The last challenge that I encountered was that the media library can be a little hard to navigate on Drupal. So if you have thousands of photos on your website, whether it's, you know, you have products, photos of anything that you're doing, you know, and you don't have any image SEO or alt text, you're missing out on a lot of valuable SEO power, especially if you've optimized all your other pages and your content's in a good spot, but you don't have any way to edit this image SEO. That's probably your next logical step. So you have to come up with a solution for that. So, and I found that Drupal's vanilla media library, and if you're going to use the IMCE version, it doesn't allow for custom alt tags. Basically all you can see is the image title or the image file name, and then the file size. And IMCE has an FTP layout, which is really not user-friendly if you're not used to working in the back end of a website. And then the media library just doesn't allow for in-depth editing of that kind of stuff. I'm going to show my WordPress colors again, but media library in WordPress is a little bit easier to edit, just because you can actually edit and manipulate your media right within the CMS. So you're not like editing in Photoshop, re-uploading, that kind of stuff. So you can crop photos and things like that just by default. Some of the solutions we found, though, there's a couple modules like image field, the suite that gives you flexibility to put limits on things like resolution, constrain your image sizes to make sure that you don't have a giant image that's only displaying as 400 by 400 pixels. It lets you edit image SEO, so you can provide a custom alt tag. That's basically like the page title version of a content page, so that's what shows up when you search in any Google or Bing or Yahoo. You do need the extended version to actually update everything you want to with images. So like image field extended, that will let you add custom data, so metadata to your images. Image cache lets you do dynamic thumbnails, so if you have to display a bunch of different versions of your image on the website. Image F upload does bulk image upload capabilities, and then if image field crop, you can crop permanently within your CMS, so you don't have to upload new photos every time you want to change that. And then if you're using the content construction kit, this integrates right in with that. So to kind of wrap up, summarize a little bit, I guess Drupal and SEO, what does that mean for you while you're managing a website? A lot of our Drupal clients, have been larger enterprise clients, government, things like that, that they maybe don't necessarily need a comprehensive SEO strategy up front. However, it is a very powerful SEO-friendly CMS for website content. So we have actually started getting more Drupal and Magento clients in that are like realizing now, hey, I've had my site up for a few years, I need to kind of start caring about this. And generally speaking, they tend to be more complicated SEO-wise than WordPress websites. So while it is very SEO friendly and powerful, you're dealing with a lot of pages and a lot of content, which just means that SEO for Drupal just takes longer than WordPress SEO. So you have to budget accordingly. So if you're going to be the one doing it, or if you're going to hire an expert to do it, which I recommend if you want a more comprehensive strategy, doesn't mean you can't do some of it yourself, but it definitely helps to have some consulting, just because usually experts do update and train more frequently. So just make sure you have the time to devote to doing this. It's definitely a big undertaking. If you have a large website and you're trying to optimize it for the first time ever, you're going to be sifting through kind of a lot of things. So you have to prioritize. But essentially for Drupal, the right modules and the right tools are going to carry you very far. So if you're going to do SEO yourself, just find some external tools on the web to help you check for duplicate content, manage things like citations and backlinks, things like that. And then get the right modules that you're comfortable with using and that will work on your website to just help make that process a little bit easier. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
How do you balance having a site like what our keynote showed with Microsoft, having a whole bunch of stuff on it, that's got a lot of search options on it, versus having something like Bootstrap, which is very minimal in their presentation. One is very presentation friendly, and the other one is definitely trying to grab a bunch of search hits. How do you balance that?
Well, it really depends on defining like what your actual goal of the website is. So everybody is going to be a little bit different. Microsoft might be, attempting to drive traffic to a very specific subset of pages. So really it depends on who your target audience is, making sure that you address those user needs on every single page. So user testing, like our keynote, is actually really, really helpful in terms of determining, what's most important content that we have on our website, and is it being represented in an appropriate way. So usability is a really big thing for SEO, in my opinion. And then also just balancing, like, where am I trying to target? Who am I trying to target? What do we do? That kind of stuff. So it's kind of tailoring each strategy, especially within content and your navigation structure, to whoever those particular users are. So does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm just kind of looking for that silver bullet that everybody wants. Like, how can you make this just like instantly?
Yeah, it does take a lot of time. You have to invest a lot of time into figuring out, what the most important issues are on your website, and then, address those accordingly. I wish I could have an easy button to press for some websites, because they're definitely not all fun to work with. But it is always fun when you start to see those search rankings rise and the visibility improve and things like that. So it takes a long time. That's the other thing about SEO that's hard. Some of our clients, didn't start to rank, in the top search results page for a year and a half after working with us. It just takes a really long time, depending on how competitive the market is and where they're targeting, stuff like that. So, any other questions? Well, if not, I put our website up there. You can check us out. You can also email me if you have other questions too. And like I said, if you ever need some expert opinion, we do consulting as well too. Sometimes it's nice to just bounce ideas off if you're actually managing a website and you're not really sure where to go. So if you guys don't have any questions, I'll let you go early, because I'm sure everyone wants to go have dinner. Thank you.